Greetings and salutations, fellow questioners. I'm here with Donnie Cho to ask, is Elon Musk a Rahab? Now, before we get too far into that, Donnie, could you tell everyone just a little bit about Rahab from Joshua 2?
Rahab is a figure in the Bible who, in the story of Joshua, as he was invading the city of Jericho, and I think you will add more color to that story. Rahab was a person who helped Joshua and his army into the city, even though she was a woman of, let's just say, of ill repute.
Yes.
She was working as a lady of the night, as they would say, and she, with her efforts, was able to help Joshua achieve the victory that was promised to him by God. And one of the, I guess, interesting aspects of this central figure in our story is that she herself was someone who is very unlikely for God to choose in his plans because of her occupation and because of her background. And this is a very interesting take on the whole story of the people of God, because it goes to show that God will sometimes use some of the unlikeliest of figures to enact some of his plans.
Yes. No, exactly. And the viewers are probably saying, okay, how does this apply to Elon Musk, right? Because that's one of the big questions people on the right and the left have is, how do we interpret what Elon Musk is? If you're on the right, you like what he was doing with what he's been doing with Twitter, right? Making it more free speech, allowing actual news and information to get out, and revealing how much of Twitter has, and really all of social media, has been completely controlled by the deep state, and how much of it was just fake. But at the same time, this is a guy who, with Neuralink, wants to put a chip in your head. Right? And he's gone to some of these big parties and things wearing, I mean, straight up satanic armor, right? This is a guy who seems to be all over the place. And the question becomes, well, okay, so where do you put him in this? How do we interpret him? Is he a hero? Is he a villain? Is he a villain pretending to be a hero? What is he? Right? And I think in a few episodes, we're definitely going to talk about why I'm really sort of keying into this particular time frame. Prophetically speaking, I'm coming from a Christian background. Why the entering into Levant is sort of fresh in my mind. But the thing about the story of Rahab that I find really interesting, I think probably very telling about this situation for Elon Musk, is Rahab is on the inside, right? She is living in Jericho. She's engaging in that culture. She's a part of that culture. She allows the spies in and protects the spies and allows them out. And for that, she was protected. Eventually, she becomes an ancestor of Jesus himself. And to your point, she's this very unlikely person to be used by God, much less to be a part of the Messiah's lineage. But she is. And I think the key here is, while she was helping the Hebrew spies, she wasn't a Hebrew. She wasn't behaving like a Hebrew. She was still just doing her thing as a innkeeper and prostitute, right? I think that's kind of how we need to view, again, more from a prophetic lens, Elon Musk. He's on the inside. He's letting people in. That's his contribution. He's not our hero, as in he's a great moral leader or that he's even a great thinker, or he's someone who's allowing people in to make these changes.
Do you think you can so for people who aren't following the whole Twitter story very closely, do you think you can let us know, like, what exactly he is exposing ever since he did take over Twitter?
Yeah. So one of the things, and we've talked about this on the live show a lot, sort of the broader idea of how disinformation is used and spread, right? And one of the, I think, elements that he's really sort of shown, a lot of us already knew it, was that Twitter was hiding certain individuals and suppressing individuals and straight up banning individuals,
Mhm.
not because they were violent or advocating for something wrong, but because they were politically inconvenient to those in power. That they were actively being used and monetized by the American deep state and intelligence gathering in entities, which includes the FBI. And that's a whole other conversation for another day, that the FBI is no longer a law enforcement agency, but an intelligence agency. But essentially, Twitter was being used as propaganda to control the conversation writ large amongst not just really Americans. Obviously, that's sort of our focus, but essentially everyone. It wasn't just the United States that this affects. It was affecting everybody. But for our purposes, it's the United States, and that was what they were controlling. Matt Taibbi and others have shown the way they were just the United States deep state, the intelligence agencies were telling Twitter how to do things. Literally saying who to get rid of and who not to. I mean, not big channels, small channels. People who were creating memes were getting kicked out because they were effective. And I think the bigger piece to all of this, beyond, and this is really Twitter's importance, is that it is essentially not just a way to convey ideas, which it is. It's the bigger issue for Twitter and why it became so valuable is it allowed people to see exactly how popular an idea was. And what they were doing is essentially controlling the conversation completely and allowing the average person to realize, hold on, I'm not alone when I say this. We've talked about this in the live show as well. It's very common. It's not the first person who stands up that's the hero. It's often the most important. It's the second person to stand up. Because the first person who stands up, yes, he is the hero. He's the motivator. But it's that second person who stands up that lets the crowd know, oh, hold on. We can all stand. Right? The first person is important, but that second person is what motivates the rest of the crowd. Because as soon as that second person stands up, everyone else is willing to do it. Mm-hmm. By not just suppressing voices, but suppressing that the contact, also hyperinflating artificially through chatbots and just straight up fake, sock puppet accounts, artificially inflating the popularity of other views. It created this entire idea that there was that one perspective was dominant when it really wasn't. That there wasn't room for certain conversations. And that's what he's been revealing, is that no, everyone's not necessarily on board with this, with what is essentially a globalist redefining of life and politics and the economy. That the concerns of the average person were being suppressed. And everyone's like, well, is it just me? Right? Am I the crazy person? And now we're finding out, no, you're actually the normal person. You're the common person. These ideas were limited by a very small number of intelligence agencies propagating these thoughts. And Twitter was one of the major venues for that. Again, you still have the mainstream media, right? We're definitely going to do a whole conversation about Fox versus CNN and sort of that ideological drive. But the simple fact of the matter is, everyone is on the take. That includes Fox, right? They're, I think Tim Pool said it best. CNN is what you're supposed to believe. Fox News is what you're allowed to believe. Twitter said, with Elon Musk taking over Twitter, Twitter's now allowing that broader conversation that you wouldn't hear on Fox.
What were some of the things that Elon Musk discovered when he did take over Twitter?
Well, honestly, I think the single biggest thing is what we've already mentioned. Mm-hmm. The FBI was directly intervening in how Twitter ran, who it allowed, which stories got suppressed.
I think there were people who were actually in the former intelligence, who were actually working at Twitter as executives and management.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. They even had their own Slack channel. It was a former FBI agent Slack channel
Mm-hmm.
for people working within Twitter. And that would have been bad enough. And it's not just the FBI. It's not just the CIA. It's other intelligence agencies we know were working within it. But it was the fact that you had people who were active, the active FBI, active within the White House, essentially having direct access to Twitter saying, I want these people shut down. I want this story suppressed. That's the big news, right? Again, a lot of us knew that was happening, so it wasn't really news to us, but it was news to a lot of people who, so you can call them the normies, the people who just thought everything was on the up and up when clearly it wasn't.
The people who are watching this right now and thinking, oh, this is a whole bunch of conspiracy theory talk. Well, is it really though? Because the guy who literally took over that company came out and said, hey, there's like intelligence assets working within this company that I own, and I'm able to see all the books.
Yep. And he allowed people like Matt Taibbi, respected journalists, to come in and go through the evidence and start releasing that. And of course, they had congressional hearings on the day from Matt Taibbi, while he is in front of Congress talking about this, the IRS sends an agent to his home. And and again, congressmen on the right, not the ones on the left, because we know who the ones on the left are actually supporting. There's whoa, that's insane. Like, this isn't even a veiled threat. That's just a straight up threat.
Yeah.
So we know that they're hitting something. Like, this is clearly what's happening, or they wouldn't go at it this way. And the fact that so many people, again, this isn't necessarily a right versus left thing, at least it shouldn't be. On the upper echelon, it is, only because there's the establishment. Because even then, on the right, establishment right is just as much a part of the deep state as anybody else, right? They're just as corrupt. But there are those on the right who are going after this, because that's sort of where the pushback against this, we can call it the military industrial complex, but it's much broader than that. It's really become it's a military intelligence industrial complex, right? It's all one thing now. And again, you can just say, okay, deep state, but it's really this much larger complex that does want to control. It's literally out of outer limits, right? They want to control all that you see and hear. They want to control the horizontal and the vertical. And so that's what he's exposing. And really the resistance is sort of coming from the right. It's not all of the right, because they're particularly the establishment, are just as in bed with this larger corrupt force as anything else. But, at least there is that pushback. And that's what, going back to Elon Musk, what he's exposed. And now that he's opened the platform up, people are able to say things. People are able to meet other people. People aren't being shadow banned the way they are. And so people are starting to see other views. A lot of the sock puppet accounts are gone. And now we have Tucker Carlson, who at least at the moment looks like he's going to be doing the show from Twitter. That's a big, big deal, because YouTube, one of the places this show is broadcast on, has this sneaky little tendency to run out and suppress and demonetize and control anyone who isn't toting the line they want you to tote. Again, this show will be on Twitter as well. We'll put this up here, and we're going to be on Rumble. But it's important that there is now, between Rumble and Twitter, these new avenues for communication to develop, so that real conversation can be had. Because if we can't even talk about what the issues are, if we can't talk about the problems, we can't come up with real solutions.
So Elon Musk is kind of affording us the opportunity to finally do that in a meaningful way, which kind of goes back to the story of Rahab, where she's kind of opening the doors for some meaningful actual progress to take place, right?
Correct. Yeah. Now, of course, if you lived in Jericho, you wouldn't see that as meaningful progress, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a Hebrew, you do. And this is, the old Obi-Wan Kenobi quote, certain things are, true from a certain point of view.
Yeah.
Or many of the truths you hold, one man's hero is another man's terrorist, kind of a situation, right? to those in power, to these elites, to these members who have power and wealth and protection through this sort of military intelligence industrial complex, Elon Musk is a villain. He's a traitor. Now, again, I go back to why I think Rahab is a great sort of illustration is she wasn't Hebrew. She wasn't doing Hebrew things. She wasn't worshiping, Jehovah. She wasn't sacrificing. She was in Jericho. She was a Canaanite, living that lifestyle and doing those things while this happened. After, right, she did become a Hebrew. Now, I'm not saying that Elon Musk is going to be, attending some Bible study anytime soon. But again, how to look at him is that he's someone on the inside who's opening the doors for real progress to be made. But it's only progress from our perspective because we actually want real solutions to things. Not even, it's like, well, you want conservative or no. If there is no conversation, there can be no solution. I've got plenty of people who I know who are friends, who are liberals. And it's like, okay, well, let's just sit down and let's talk about this for a second. We can find all kinds of points of things to talk about and agree on and move forward with. Which means people in Washington, people at our state, I'm here in Texas, in Austin. If they can't come to an answer, it's probably because they make more money off of something being broken than being fixed. And up until now, the conversation, with Fox, CNN, of course, CNN being the stand-in for ABC, NBC, the entirety of the media. Fox was sort of the outlier. But even that, it created an artificial dichotomy, right? That back and forth. But it kept that Overton window right here. And therefore, you weren't allowed to ask questions like, hold on, maybe the solution isn't this back and forth, but rather the solution's over here. Maybe we all agree up here. Why don't we do this? Well, now that conversation can happen. And once everyone realizes, hold on, I'm not the crazy one here, there's going to be room for progress.
What about for the people who accuse Elon Musk of being some kind of far-right, Alex Jones, sympathizing kind of, not in the interests of the liberals or the left,
right?
Kind of seen as the boogeyman in that regard.
Right.
Because there are people who are on the left who do see people like Elon and people like Alex Jones and anyone who might be even somewhat associated with the right as kind of the boogeyman. And
I think this goes back to the whole problem of the right versus left dichotomy.
I think that's part of the problem.
It's the nature of the conversation itself, which is, again, Twitter opening, which I think honestly goes back to the reason they view him this way is because they realize once people kind of can see the game, jigs up. Once they realize, hold on, even the argument itself is artificial. These labels don't really mean what we think they mean. It's going to change the nature of things. And at the end of the day, the globalist elite, right? And they're like, oh, that's a dog whistle. No, this is what they call themselves. These are people who believe in a one world government, right? They want, again, military industrial or intelligence industrial complex. They don't want this conversation to occur because once we can talk about things, we realize, oh, hold on, you're both lying. This whole fight was a distraction so you could make money off of us. I was talking to my neighbor and a couple weeks ago, and one of the things we were talking about is if people understood for a second how much money the government has stolen from us and just given to themselves, often using body bags, metaphorically, as the way of laundering that money through these endless wars and police actions. Every American would be begging for gallows. If everyone understood how much money was supposed to go to the inner cities to help people who are genuinely poor to help that infrastructure, if they realize how many trillions of dollars were earmarked for that and then never made it there, there'd be riots every day. Like, this is the thing people don't understand, how much money is spent and how much of it never comes to us. It's supposed to be making things better. You think the inner city is as bad as it is? The infrastructure is as bad as it is? The schools are as bad as they are? By accident? You think the reason the border looks the way it does is by accident? You think it's just negligence? You think it's just incompetence? It's by design. They want to be able to they want us fighting each other so they can steal our money and our rights because they think they know better. Elon Musk is, again, it's not just him, but how to view him. He's allowing us into Jericho. And this is where real change can now take place, because now people can say, hey, I'm not the only one noticing this stuff. And I'm not crazy for noticing this.
And maybe it does take a guy like him in that position to be the one to open that door, because people in our position don't have the power nor the means to do it.
Yeah,
we're on the outside. I do find it funny how a country like ours that's so rich, that's got so much poverty. I mean, that is a whole lot of poverty for such a stinking rich country, isn't it?
It really is. Now, there is 2 points. You can say, well, hold on. There's always going to be haves and have-nots no matter what you do. And the have-nots have it way better in this country than many haves in other countries. 100% true. However, to your point, it shouldn't be that bad in these places. The reason that they are this bad is because we've been sold out. Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. We got sold out a long, long time ago. And again, going back to my point, it's this and TikTok, and we got sold out economically, we got sold out philosophically, we got sold out morally, all of it. And that's the thing, is now we can see it. And now people can realize, hey, this is not the way it's supposed to be. Y'all have all been lying to us. And now we can talk about solutions, real solutions. And that's what they're afraid of.
Yeah. And they're afraid of people having a mind of their own.
Yes. No, exactly. The scariest thing for any tyrant is the people waking up. Particularly the people who have over 300 plus million guns.
Yeah. I found one of the most surprising things about Elon's takeover of Twitter was when he came out right afterwards and he was like, I was looking at the books. There shouldn't be this many accounts for the number of people that are actually interacting with this media platform.
Yeah.
What are all these accounts? You know?
Oh, yeah. No, exactly. And it goes back to, the sock puppet accounts. And it goes back to the whole intelligence operation.
And this ain't conspiracy theory talk, folks. This is like the guy who literally owns that company.
Yeah. No, precisely. He realized, hey, hold on here. This isn't right. Because that's the whole point. Twitter was, they realized very quickly, particularly after the 2016 election, how Twitter could be used to manipulate people and how to manipulate it through these accounts. And Twitter knew, this is the thing, Twitter knew they were fake. Twitter knew they were fake, but they allowed them because it made them more money, but also because they allowed them to live up to their contracts with the deep state. Like, they knew what they were, which is why I find it funny. Everyone's complaining about TikTok, right? And they're like, it's a Chinese it's all spyware. I don't, you think Facebook hasn't sold all your information to China anyway, right? It's all spyware. All of it is spyware. The thing is, places like TikTok, people are able to talk because maybe you can say, well, China sees some value in us destabilizing ourselves, right? With conflict. Maybe that probably is true. That's probably what they want to happen. But you know what? Okay, if they mean it out of malice, I'm okay with that.
At least they're not beholden to the normal power players. So
Right. At least, yeah.
yeah,
Again, they may have. This goes again. It's like the story of Joshua, yeah, Joshua. I'm always terrible with names, but not necessarily the one who was invading the Levant, but in Egypt, right? He was sold as a slave, right? His brothers wanted to kill him.
you mean Joseph?
Joseph, sorry,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm terrible with names, but yeah, Joseph. Like his brothers wanted to kill him, but they sold him into slavery, and he ends up saving everyone and essentially allowing the Hebrew people to become a nation. So things, even if TikTok is meant for ill intent, great. The thing is that may not end up being its ultimate legacy, right? The legacy of TikTok may end up being just one more platform for the people, to speak to one another.
Kind of like we were talking about this topic earlier, Jason, you and I, and one of the aspects of this whole topic that I find personally compelling is the notion that someone like Rahab and someone like Elon Musk, not necessarily soldiers for God, but perhaps mercenaries for God, right?
I like that.
Yeah, the contractors for God.
They're not sold out for the cause, but it doesn't mean they're not going to be in the front line when they're needed.
Yeah, I like that idea. I find that one compelling. I kind of see myself that way because I don't consider myself a Christian, but I consider Christians an ally.
And you know what? I think God uses all kinds of people. And I think this is another one of those topics probably for an entire show, which is, I think everyone is flabbergasted at the idea that God uses people they don't expect. The Bible is full of people, of God choosing people no one would have chosen. And that's by design. Because at the end of the day, I think the one thing I've really taken away from all of those stories, like, well, why are Abraham is this, and all these people have all these flaws. Yes, because you're flawed. And if God can use them, he can use you. The reason we like to put people on pedestals, again, this goes back to the question of Elon Musk. People are like, well, is he a hero? Is he a villain? He's a human. The question is, how is he being used? But if we frame everything as hero, villain, it allows us to abdicate our responsibility in the story. Because I'm not a hero. How many times do I hear people say, I'm not Abraham, I'm not a Paul, I'm not a Peter? Did you actually read their stories? Peter isn't who you think he is. Abraham isn't who you think he is. Paul certainly wasn't who you think he was. Their foil, David, definitely not who you think he was, right? Their foils and failures are right there for you to see, because that's the point. They're not heroes.
Yeah.
They're people used by God, just like you can. And the problem is we abdicate and we tell ourselves, oh, I can't do something. And I think that's the other thing they're worried about. It's literally that. Did you ever see Bug's Life?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was the second Pixar
one of my
film.
favorite Pixar movies, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Please don't ruin that one, Pixar.
Don't amplify it, please.
Yeah. But that scene at the end when the bug is talking, he's getting beat up by the grasshoppers, and he realizes, oh, hold on. That's what you don't want us to realize, is we outnumber you 100 to 1. And the grasshopper even says they outnumber us 100 to 1. If they want this over, it's over, and there's nothing we can do to stop them. That's what they don't want us to realize. As long as we can hero worship and fight vicariously through people on Twitter and on Facebook and on watching on the talking box, right? As long as we're like, oh, I can't do anything because I'm just fill in the blank. I'm not a fill in the blank. As long as we're not actually engaged, they're always going to win. The second we all realize, hold on, we outnumber you millions to 1. It doesn't have to be violent. We just have to actually vote, and not just say, okay, I voted and I'm done. No, you participate in the political process. You talk to your neighbors. You engage. As soon as we do that, it's over. And that's what they don't want to have happen. And that's the real, again, this goes back to the real danger of Twitter, right? Why do the intelligence agencies realize that it could be exploited so easily? Because it allows people to think, oh, I am not in the majority, I'm in the minority.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as everyone realizes, no, hold on, all this woke stuff is being forced down our gullet by a very small, very select group of people. It is not mainstream. Most people actually hate it, and it is actively hurting a lot of people.
It's actively hurting a lot of brands and intellectual properties as well.
Yeah. Exactly.
And to your point, voting isn't like, you could vote at the ballot box. You could vote in your local and state and federal government elections. However, there are numerous ways you can vote. One of those ways, and one of my personal favorite ways of voting, is voting with your dollars.
Yes.
Right? Like choosing not to, like, if you don't agree with it, don't buy it, right?
Yeah.
You don't have
go
to.
see the movie.
Yeah. Just
don't
go, I'm not watching Disney anymore. I canceled my Disney Plus account. I haven't gone to see a Disney movie in the theaters in years. As a matter of fact, the last Disney movie I saw in the theater was the last Star Wars movie, and I was like, never again. Never again, Disney. You've lost me.
Well, and honestly, these companies are seeing that hit.
They're seeing it.
They are. Look at Budweiser.
Yeah.
They got hit hard, and they're having to back. Amazon paid $1 billion for Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's work, and then they butchered it. Only 37% of the people who started that new show that they did finished it.
Yeah.
They see those numbers. These things are hits. People, meaning it's a hit to them financially. You hit them hard enough, they will change. They have to. The thing is, up until just now, people couldn't realize, oh, wait, no, people do agree with me. I'm not the odd man out.
Mm-hmm.
And then again,
you can also vote with your time. You choose where you spend your time and where you focus your time.
Yes.
That's something you have agency over. So,
yeah.
Apply that, apply that will and that wisdom into how you apply your time, because that's another way that you can vote into something. That's another way you give something power. If you take your time away and your focus away from it, it doesn't have any power over you, right?
Correct. No, correct. And I know this is going to sound, and this is probably an entire conversation for another show, but how much is your entertainment worth? We really waste most of our time on entertainment. We're not engaging in the things we need to engage with. I'm not saying you have to run for an office to be engaged in politics. You don't. But then the number of people who show up for an election should, on a local level kind of a situation, should tell you how disengaged we are, right? The reason all this is happening, it's the people. Victory goes to those who believe the hardest, the longest. That's what it is. It's not necessarily about guns or wealth. It's about buy-in. Are you going to be there every time? Now, this also means, okay, it's going to mean you sacrifice your entertainment. Not your families. You got to protect your families, but take time with your family and then spend a lot of this leisure time engage in things that you don't want to engage in, but that you have to, because the less engaged you are, the more this stuff happens. But you can use Twitter to rally those around you. You can create, again, Facebook groups for as long as that will allow. But I mean, you can use social media to rally people to go and make changes on a small level, because cumulatively that affects the whole. Everyone wants to move by the whole nation. Don't move the whole nation. Move your home.
Yeah. Hey, if you move just one, if you influence or better or move just one person, just one, that's still a net positive in my eyes.
Yeah. No, completely agree. Completely agree. So how should we view someone like Elon Musk? He's not a hero. He's a man, maybe a man being used by God, but he's just a man, just like you are. I mean, man in the human sense. Jeez, we live in a stupid age. He's a human being, just like you.
Yeah.
Just like me. And yeah, is he wealthy? Yeah. Is he more connected? Yeah. But he may be a Rahab. He's on the inside, opening up the door. We can win, meaning we can have a society that's free and open, where problems are dealt with in effective manners, where there is respect, where laws actually matter. We can have that society, but we have to talk about it. We can get that back. We can create something brand new, but it's going to take taking down Jordan, and so the fact of the matter is,
of Jericho.
Walls of Jericho. Jeez, I'm
Yeah.
terrible with all these J names. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, we can take down the walls of Jericho, but maybe he's the Rahab we need to start this fight.
He's the ultimate subcontractor for God.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, like, follow, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.